There is a new documentary that is coming out that I believe the producers of this really want to see the kind of changes we saw at SeaWorld because of, you remember the documentary Blackfish many, many years ago, where they pointed out the abuse of orcas at SeaWorld. Well, there is a park in Canada called Marineland, very similar, but what this documentary is focusing on is the treatment of a walrus named Smooshy. And the documentary is called Walrus and the Whistleblower. In fact, there are 8 people who have come forward and blown the whistle on this park and the treatment of the animals there. The main whistleblower in the title is a man named Phil Demers, and he is joining us right now to talk about the documentary and what he saw while working at Marineland. He has since left and is, in a lot of legal battles with the park as well. So, Phil, welcome to TMZ Live.
Hey, Phil.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Phil, before we get into the documentary, tell us when you were working there, what you found alarming.
In the last year of my being there, there was a break in the water disinfection unit, and the resolve was we had to increase the chlorine use. Well, this went on for far too long, and the effects of which were ranging from animals going blind, fur loss. It gets pretty graphic. The imagery is in the documentary. My last year was when I decided that I had to essentially sacrifice my job if I was to create the changes that were necessary there. And in quitting and speaking out, immediately there was that relief. I mean, Marineland did finally start dumping the water and changing it, but at that point, we'd already suffered too much loss.
Tell us about I know you just talked about some of the effects this had on the animals, but in particular, and I know the documentary focuses on this, your rapport with one of the walruses, with Smooshy, because the park has alleged that since you left, they actually have sued you, claiming that you were going to break in and try to steal Smooshy. I don't know what they thought you were going to do with a walrus in the wild, but tell us about your relationship with Smooshy.
So what happened was Marineland over years, started to acquire wild-caught baby walruses that range from the age of anywhere from 6 months to 18 months of age. Smooshy came in with another walrus, and when the new animals come in, we want to assess their health. So we do a blood withdrawal. Well, in doing so, because you haven't trained the animals to actually tolerate the pain and whatnot, the animals get nervous and frantic. So we were trying to draw blood from another walrus, and Smooshy had came in to sort of protect that walrus. And my trying to get her to leave the situation because she'd been disrupting us, I imprinted on her in this moment. I had put my hands in front of her face, and she took this big breath and opened her eyes wide. And in that moment, all that I am, the sound of my voice, my smell, everything I look like, I imprinted on her brain, much like that would happen in the wild with herd animals, so that mother and calves can identify each other amongst thousands of animals. And so at 18 months of age, Smooshy's brain circuitry opened, and in that moment, I became her mom.
Huh.
Wow. So I'd imagine it was a difficult decision for you. You were taking a stand on your principles with the park, but ultimately you end up leaving the park and therefore leaving Smooshy.
I left only with the understanding that I can come back and care for Smooshy, and Marineland ensured that we made that deal. It wasn't only until a month later that I tried to return that they were trying to keep me out of the park that I realized that they were not going to make good with this. And then when the owner's son happened to see me and then bring me into the park and escort me directly to Smooshy, I saw the physical condition she had been reduced to after a month's separation. And that's when initially I'd rejected to speak to the media. And this time I said, you get going. We don't got time. Let's go front page, everything, use my face, use my name.
So the documentary kind of describes this journey and the circumstances of Smooshy's life and the lives of the other walruses. Have you gotten any traction with the Canadian government, with the animal regulators there? Are people paying attention to this?
Oh, absolutely. But it's been a grind. I mean, you can imagine with an industry as powerful as Marineland over their history, they've got a strong arm, and so in government they've got a lot of influence. So it took a lot of work and a lot of years, but we've actually passed a law called S-203, which is a ban on captive dolphins porpoises and whales. It bans their import, export, and breeding. So the animals that Marineland currently has in their collection, they're able to keep by virtue of property laws, superseding these new laws. But once those animals have ultimately expired, then Marineland will not be able to acquire any more new whales.
Well, and imagine that's the ultimate goal is the closure of Marineland, or is it to leave it open but change it so that it is safer for the animals and educational for the public?
I would like to see Marineland evolve responsibly. There's a whale sanctuary project in the works on the east coast of Canada and eventually on the west coast of the States that will accommodate animals and the wild caught and or captive whales that can, get a semblance of a remaining of a free life. But I would like to see Marineland evolve so that they can still benefit the community in terms of offering jobs and whatnot. But I would like to see them go straight entertainment, only rides, no animals.
Well, look, this documentary sounds really gripping.
It is
the Walrus and the Whistleblower on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon Prime and Discovery Plus, March 4th it will be out. Thank you, Phil, for taking the stand and pointing these things out. Just like I said, when it happened with SeaWorld and a few years ago, it was really important for the public to know all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
Phil, thank you for everything.
thanks so much.
Thanks for amplifying my voice, gentlemen.
Absolutely. I'm going to watch this.